everybody, it's Megan Galvin back with Coffee Talk. Today we actually have a very special guest, one of our former students, Scott Halpern out of the Boston market or Boston location. Not only was he a private tutoring student, he actually did so well on his MCAT that he is actually one of our lead instructors in the Boston area now. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to hear his perspective. He did not actually do a comprehensive course with us. Instead, he came to us really for very specific needs and took advantage of some private tutoring packages with one of our instructors. So Scott, welcome. I want to say hello, and I actually want to, ask you some, kind of thoughts and reasons why you actually chose the private tutoring over the comprehensive course. What was the backstory on that?
Absolutely. So it was my second time around taking the MCAT. I had studied for one summer and then took it, and then I studied the next summer and took it again. And this summer I had used a different company and had done their kind of comprehensive class. So I had gone through some of that process a little bit. And so in my second summer, I was looking for very specific and very individualized questions and needs that I wanted. And so that's kind of where the private tutoring came in and where Examkrackers came in for a really good change of pace, new strategies, and a new way to kind of conquer the test that I was successful with.
Excellent. Okay, good. And from my recollection, you actually were matched with one of our instructors, Gordon, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Ironically, Gordon actually was featured last week as one of our instructors on Coffee Talk. He's excellent, has been with us for quite some time, many years. So I'm glad that actually was who you were with, because I know you were in excellent hands. But your story is kind of unique, and I actually I do hear it quite often where students, may have used another company or maybe did a self-study. What did you do this time around, kind of focusing on the private tutoring? What did you know about your weak areas? What did you really spend your time focusing on? What changed? What did you do differently this time to really get the score that you wanted? Because first time, obviously, you weren't happy with your score.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, a year later, I was a little bit more mature, which definitely helped with the test and with kind of the consistency with getting into the test. But I would say my general strategy in the first time going around was, for example, let's say if I was struggling in thermodynamics, my thinking would be, I need to study thermodynamics for the next week. I need to reread the chapter. I need to copy down my notes. And in the second time around, if I was struggling in thermodynamics, my weak strategy might be, okay, let me review my notes for an hour, and then let me next week doing 300 practice problems.
Right. Okay, good.
So it was so much more focused on practice the next time around to get used to the test, get used to the timing, get the MCAT's a marathon, so to get my consistency in, and that's kind of how I approached the subjects that I struggled most in. Is I would practice more and more as opposed to trying to get the content down even harder.
Okay, excellent point that you're actually making, and that's something that I actually advise my students when they're in the comprehensive course, and even with tutoring. But it's kind of unique where you kind of have to trust yourself to make that switch and balance it. And I do think that's an element that a lot of students neglect, and they spend exorbitant amounts of time, really doing an overabundance. With their focus being on content, knowing everything they possibly can about the content, and really neglecting, kind of perfecting their method and their technique of getting familiar with questions. So I think that's an interesting thing that you actually did, and ultimately it worked for you, which it should. And that is something that we really do emphasize at Examkrackers is, that focus on whether it's practice passages, full-length diagnostics, really understanding, kind of the method of madness and why things are wrong and process of elimination, and exposing yourself to that as much as you possibly can. Now, when you were with your private tutor, did you, carefully map it out? I mean, was any time wasted? I mean, did you just jump right in and have a plan? And, let's say you were meeting Thursday from 4 to 6. Did you specifically, kind of divide and conquer, and only maybe work in, some of the bio stuff or, some of the biochem stuff? How did that go about? Like, how did Examkrackers and you structure your 2-hour session?
So for me, my weakest section was generally cars.
Okay.
And so I would always dedicate at least an hour and a half or so to doing cars passages where generally I would, in front of him, so my memory was most fresh, I would spend 10 minutes doing a passage, and then we would talk about it for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. And we would try and get 3 or so passages in, talk about the questions I struggled with, talk about the concepts of the passage to understand a little bit better. And then from there, I would generally either do problems in another subject, or if there was some content that I was struggling in, I would then work with, in my situation, Gordon, and we would kind of map out some content questions. Like I would ask him about the perception pathway for auditory, and we would map the sound waves going from the air into the ear, through the middle ear, through the bones in your middle ear, going into the oval window, and so we would kind of map out that whole pathway together. And in doing that, I learned the contents a lot more and was able to understand how to better answer questions if that were to come up.
Excellent. Okay. All right, good. And then on a final note, you did so well. You and I got together. You actually just finished teaching the spring semester in the Boston location. How did you take kind of your experience with Examkrackers as a student into the classroom? What do you think you brought into it that you want to share?
Absolutely. So in being tutored and doing well on the MCAT, I had contacted you because I wanted to do the same for my students. I wanted to help them succeed on a very difficult test and a very important test. And so to be a mentor, to give back, to impart the knowledge that was given to me onto kind of the next round of students, I thought would be a great experience and really interesting and valuable to me.
Excellent. Well, good. And you did a fabulous job. Your students adored you. So it definitely, was noted. Excellent fit, good match, all that other good stuff. We're looking forward to having you continue on board as you start your journey into med school, which will be in August of 2019. So Scott is, kind of very typical again, very average as far as the timeline and kind of process. As he awaits his interview phase of all of this, he'll continue to stay on board teaching and also doing some private tutoring for us. If you're in the Boston area or even online, most likely you're going to be matched with Scott. So we want to thank you for the interview today. It was great, and sharing your wisdom and some of your personal experience is fabulous. And I'm sure that some of this will definitely enlighten some of our students who are kind of in that same situation potentially that you were. So thank you. Have a great afternoon. Guys, we are coming back with Coffee Talk next week, and we will have another student featured talking with you about something else that's going to be, I'm going to keep it a surprise, but something else that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.